Britain is drifting. Millions of people who play by the rules find themselves paying more into a system that seems to deliver less every year, feed at the pace of a dying glacier. While the public looks for a strategy to reverse this stagnation, the current administrative focus remains fixed on managing the details of the decline. When citizens raise concerns about the housing shortage, wage stagnation, or the state of the borders, the political response is often dismissive. Legitimate anxieties are frequently labeled as extreme, creating a divide between those running the country and those paying for it. This friction has now been addressed from an unexpected quarter. Tony Blair has published a 5,700-word essay outlining 10 points to overhaul the British state. For a politician who helped construct the modern political class, his admission that the machine is failing is a significant pivot. It is a notable indicator for the current administration when one of the chief architects of the establishment begins echoing the frustrations heard in pubs, workplaces, and family kitchens across the country. Voters have consistently provided a mandate for secure borders, yet the small boat crossings continue, and the taxpayer is left to fund an asylum system that appears increasingly dysfunctional. The prison system highlights the specific costs involved. This chart shows that keeping a single foreign criminal behind bars costs the public over £54,000 a year. When compared to the average UK salary, the financial burden on the working population is substantial. Many argue for a straightforward solution: deport foreign prisoners and return the financial responsibility to their home countries. This isn't about ideology, it's a question of where national resources should be prioritized. Blair's 8th point calls for aggressive measures to halt illegal immigration and resolve these deficiencies. He signals that a failure to secure the border is a failure of the state itself. When a former prime minister joins the public in calling for immediate action, it frames the current government's reluctance to act as an outlier, even within the history of their own party. On the economic front, British industry is facing high energy costs driven by strict regulations. Meanwhile, international competitors continue to utilize cheaper fuel sources to expand their industrial capacity. Blair argues that the government must prioritize cheap energy over net zero targets in the short term. He frames this as a necessary step to maintain economic competitiveness and prevent industrial collapse. This is a direct instruction to utilize domestic resources. Blair points to North Sea oil and gas to lower costs for British families and businesses. His broader plan includes radical planning reform to speed up development and targeted incentives to revive industrial production in the north. This contrast suggests that even the traditional proponents of the state now see deregulation as a vital path to growth, a path that the current political leadership in Downing Street has yet to embrace. The public is frequently told that the national budget is completely exhausted, yet there is supposedly no money for pensioners or domestic infrastructure, but funding flows to diversity departments, endless government consultancies, and expensive international schemes. The welfare system is also under scrutiny. A safety net is intended to help people recover, but the current system has seen the benefits bill balloon, often trapping people in dependency rather than facilitating a return to work. Blair's solution is a restructure of the welfare system to reduce the overall bill, alongside a health service model that uses technology to focus on preventing illness before it requires expensive hospital treatment. These ideas lead to his ultimate goal, a reimagined state. This vision describes a government that is smaller and more efficient, allowing for lower public spending and, eventually, a lower tax burden. A call for a smaller state from a figure like Blair highlights the friction in the current strategy of expanding state spending, while the people paying for it see their own standards of living decline. This isn't about looking to Tony Blair for answers. It is about noting that a central figure of the political class is now openly acknowledging that the state apparatus is failing to meet the basic needs of the country. There is a growing gap between the language of leadership and the reality of the public. One side speaks in the terms of focus groups and consultants. The other speaks of bills, rent, and the rising cost of crime. When governments appear to ignore lawful public frustration, that frustration doesn't go away. It simply hardens into a deeper distrust of the institutions themselves. If a politician who once championed mass migration and increased regulation now warns that the country cannot survive on ideology and managed decline, it leaves the current government with very little room to justify its current course. When everyday taxpayers find themselves nodding along to a Tony Blair essay, it indicates that the disconnect between Downing Street and the public has reached a critical point.